183, number 11. Y equals x times 16 minus x squared to the 1/2. So I wrote that a little bit differently just because I'm assuming I'm going to need to take a derivative, and I can't take a derivative of a square root. I'd rather take a derivative of a power. But let me read the question and see what's happening here. Increasing and decreasing intervals. Okay, this actually works well to kind of look back, because now we know more stuff than we knew when we first saw this problem. And so in some ways that might make it more confusing, because now we know stuff about f, we know stuff about f prime, and now we know stuff about f double prime. Which one of those three things tells me whether a function is increasing or decreasing? F prime, or f double prime? F prime. So this is an f prime problem, because if f prime is positive, we're increasing, and if f prime is negative, we're decreasing. In fact, today's worksheet reviews a little bit of that as well. So I need to find f prime, which means product rule, excuse me. So f prime is 1. G prime is kind of yuck. 1/2. 16 minus x squared to the negative 1/2. And not done yet. I need the derivative of the inside to chain rule this. Negative 2x. Emily.
Oh, okay. No, I just did the changes. So I made the x here and then only did. Okay.
So first, you know what? Let's clean up the derivative of g, because that's kind of a mess right now. 2's cancel. X stays in top. Square root of 16 minus x squared goes to the bottom. Nikita. You could not avoid the product rule on that one. Right? Like on the quiz, you could have. I hope you distributed first to avoid the product rule, but you can't distribute an x into a square root. So you can't avoid the product rule on this one. So it's a good question, because sometimes you can, but not here. So first times derivative of the second plus derivative of first times the second so it looks like that. Intervals, that suggests a number line with boundary points. How do I figure out what the markers are on the number line? What's that? The critical points, where f prime is 0 or undefined. So I'm going to clean up f prime by getting a common denominator. So negative x squared plus 16 minus x squared all over square root 16 minus x squared. So negative 2x squared plus 16 square root 16 minus x squared. Critical points would be where f prime is 0 or undefined. So f prime is 0 when the top is 0. So x squared equals 8. X is the square root of 8. F prime is undefined when the bottom is 0. That's one where some people would show all the algebra steps. Other people would just look at that and say, I know what makes that 0. And that's okay if you can do that. Like, what value of x would make that 0? Oh, except that's the trouble if you try to do it that way. Plus or minus 4. So you'd have to include both of them. Oh, and plus or minus square root 8. So now I've got my critical points, which is kind of a bummer that there's 4 of them, because that means there'll be 5 intervals. So I need a tribute from each district to send off to the... Where am I sending them off to? Not the Hunger Games, but where am I sending them off to in this problem? F prime, because F prime will tell me if F is increasing or decreasing. So F prime of -5, I'm kind of out of space here. Let's see, if I put in -5, 25 times -2 is going to be negative in the top. In the bottom, square root of 16 minus 25, square root of -9. That's just a no. That's not like positive or negative. That just doesn't work. I can't square root a negative number. And if you go back to the original function, you might be able to figure out that nothing smaller than -4 is going to work anyway. So plug in -3. Let's see, that'd be 9 times -2 is -18, plus 16 is negative, all over square root of 16 minus 9 is 7. I have no idea what that is, except that I know it's negative. And so that means that F is decreasing. Again, the arrow is not necessary, but maybe it's helpful. I plug in 0, this should be the easy one. I get 16 over square root of 16, which is positive. So F is increasing. Because all my inputs are squared, F prime of 3 is going to be the same as F prime of -3. So that one's going to be negative, which means F is decreasing, and then 5 won't even work. So I'm decreasing from -4 to -8, or negative square root of 8, and square root of 8 to 4. Then increasing negative square root of 8 to square root of 8. And it didn't ask me for them, but I think it's pretty easy to spot a minimum and a maximum, because F prime changes signs. They didn't ask it for it in this question, but that's sort of the next thing.